Hello and welcome to this second vlog. My name is Jakob Anker Nielsen. I'm a Danish platform architect. I'm as privileged as to be a part of the Certified Technical Architect program of ServiceNow, and this is the second video in a series where I will try to explain week by week, hopefully I have enough time to do so, what is happening on the CTA, what are we learning, and what is the process like. So if you haven't seen the previous, there is also a video about the kickoff or the pre-launch activities, the onboarding activities that happens before week one. So you can watch that as well on my channel. This week here, week one, is not very technical, and that is very interesting to me. In fact, what this week here has been about is more on the softer skills of the presentation aspects and communication aspects that are equally important when you want to convey anything, essentially. It is especially relevant in the realm of a certified technical architect, let's just say technical architect, or anyone that needs to convey a complex matter to different levels of organization. So it might be to C-level, to enterprise architects, platform owners, to product leads, to developers, and so on. You need to be able to convey the abstract nature of the technical architecture in an appropriate way, and it's very much about this in week one. So at the end of this week, where we are approaching now, we are to upload a video presentation for the other teams on the cohort to review, so they can give feedback on the performance and the content and our ability to convey complex messages to the audience that will be a fictitious stakeholder group of different personas within our case study organization called Sovereign Bank. And we have just completed our draft presentation as a team, and it has been an immensely gratifying, I think the word is, and learning full experience. You get so much out of it. One of the key experiences for me here is that it's not really about doing the presentation, it's about collaborating with your squad inside of the cohort to achieve the values that you want to live by. So for us, it's about having an open feedback culture. It is about being there to support each other and letting the individual own the presentation, but giving feedback that enables that person to bring out the best presentation possible. But at the end of the day, the presenter will need to take ownership and take the decisions based on the feedback given by us as a group, and be able to be comfortable in conveying whatever message needs to be conveyed on the presentation. Side note there, side note being that each of us, we will kind of delegate week by week who will be our presenter, and that person is then presenting the presentation on behalf of the group, but really it's more on behalf of that person, him or herself, as you then get feedback on, for example, your presentation style and so on. So it's very important that the person that will be presenting is comfortable in owning the message. So what we try to emphasize is that it's not enough just to try to build in all of the feedback and try to please all of the different perspectives that the group may have. We are 6 people after all. It's more about taking in what makes sense to the presenter, and for the presenter to try to incorporate that into his or her presentation and then own it. Because there is nothing brilliant about an idea that is brilliant if it cannot be conveyed efficiently and owned by the presenter. So that's something that we are focusing on here. On week one, we are learning further about the role of the technical architect and what they're here to do. What we are focusing in on is that, fortunately for me, it reminds me a lot of my current role as a platform architect at ServiceNow. So it is about understanding the the business context, the business drivers, the objectives, strategic elements, where does the customer want to go, understanding the underlying complexities of the IT infrastructure and stakeholder perspectives and concerns, and trying to translate that into an architectural blueprint that explains what is the current process and current enterprise architecture or platform architecture, and what does it look like in the future if we are to achieve the strategic components that we have explicitly identified during our interviews with the customer. And additionally, how can different architectures look like to address the different concerns and views of the stakeholders, and how can we make compromises between them, which is something that's becoming pretty apparent in the case study given to us. The fictitious sovereign bank group, they have very different agendas, and somehow we need to consolidate and make compromises between them to make a transition from the current as is to a desirable to be future. So that needs to kind of take all of them into consideration, and we probably need to do some stakeholder management to bridge the differences of opinion and business objectives between the individual core members of the customer group as well. Right. So one way of doing this is the architectural blueprint, as mentioned. Where are we? Where do we want to be? What does that to be future look like in terms of different solutions and options? What are the trade-offs between them, and how do they cater to the different stakeholder views? Another way in supporting capability of the technical architect is the technology roadmap. So this explains what product adoption features and services could we implement and adopt in order to achieve the desired business outcomes. In what sequence? In kind of a maturation format, from you could imagine from crawl to walk to run to fly, for example. Another important aspect would be technical governance. So it's not enough just to know where do we want to go to achieve the alignment as a team. We also need to make sure that once we start executing on our plan, that we also get to where we want to go. So we need to keep ourselves honest as an implementation team in the delivery function to make sure that once I complete an update set or I push something to production, does it actually achieve what the business wants to achieve, or is it just something that an engineer thought of would look cool? So this is achieved through technical governance on the delivery function. So that may be stuff like having some principles for architecture, having design authorities for customizations to make them business smart customization, as ServiceNow calls it, to know when to do it, when not to do it, and to align all of the incoming demands and initiatives that are being prioritized to the business objectives, and to kind of do assessments on the efficiency of our delivery function from development, how many bugs are upstream and how many test findings do we have that could have been prevented, and can we implement feedback cycles in our governance policies to ensure that some patterns are identified and assessed, the root cause is assessed. For example, maybe you need to make sure you test this and that. Maybe you need to make sure that you don't write GR as names on variables. All sorts of stuff that can kind of keep it as a learning delivery function. That is also what technical governance is here to achieve. Keep us honest, keep us on the direction, and keep us learning and on point. Yes. So during the presentation that we did as a team, some of the learnings that we came up with is about how do we structure and communicate our presentation as efficiently as possible. As mentioned, at the end of the day, it needs to be owned by one individual of our team who will get to present and to receive the feedback. But some of the feedback that we arrived at is stuff like we should write less, and show more on the presentation slides. And we need to connect the challenges to the solutions. Diagrams are awesome for reducing complexity, but we need to make sure they are in fact doing so. Again, this comes back to showing more, showing less and saying more. Maybe I twisted that a bit. I think you know what I mean. Another one is hook the audience. So before we get to the more boring, this is who I am and these is my certificates and so on, the presentation, bring out a hook, a quote saying, we decided upon an African quote, I believe it was, something to, I'm paraphrasing probably, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go as a group. And that kind of supported the underlying topic that we were using as a red thread for the presentation, being moving as one, which is kind of a step at we want to make sure that all of the different persona views, they are aligned and accounted for before we get into the execution part of this digital transformation with the sovereign bank group. Anything else? Let's see. I think that is about it. One last thing, the feedback culture. I think I mentioned that at the start, but it's worth reiterating them. If you ever get a chance to be in the CTA, CTA or any other learning environment, do make an effort to try to incorporate an open feedback culture where it's not where you don't get defensive and you don't try to correct or justify what you did while you were doing it. It's just about taking it in, making sure you understand the feedback, say thank you, and move on to the next one. Because this makes for a very productive learning environment where you are able to take in many different views, come back, process it, and try to incorporate what makes sense to you and what you feel that you can own. So again, it's not about pleasing all views. It's about trying to glean the value you can from the feedback that you are given to bolster and make your presentation and communication as spot on as possible. So that was week 1. We are now going to upload the presentation. We have a deadline tomorrow for this, and then on Friday morning for me, we are going to have a live presentation, and we are going to do feedback on other groups' presentations as well. So again, feedback, feedback, feedback. That will be key and a red thread throughout the CTA program, I'm sure. Thank you for watching. I hope you found some value in this. I'll try to follow up with another video next week. Cheers.